Hey friends, we are going to be looking at author's craft. This is going to help you in one of your work pages that you're working on today. So the first thing I wanted to do is just talk about what is author's craft. And it is language and techniques that a writer uses to just help make his writing or her writing more interesting and help get the ideas across to the reader. So one thing that an author can use is voice. And you have a voice. When you say something, you have a certain way of saying it, and it comes across in writing as well when an author uses certain words to show his or her style. And it could depend on the genre too, about how you're writing. Fiction might sound different from nonfiction. Then there's also mood, and this is just the emotions and feelings of the reader while you're reading a text. So if it's a sad story, the mood is going to be kind of gloomy and dark. A mystery might have a mood of suspense or surprise, fantasy of wonder or excitement. An article, like from a newspaper, could be serious and thoughtful. The next is an anecdote. And this is just a short, funny, or interesting story that has to do with characters or events. So while on a school field trip, a teacher might tell her students about a field trip she took with her classmates as a student. So just a little short story that the author might throw in there. Now, language is a big one, using great vocabulary, precise nouns, not saying stuff and things, sensory words that help you use your senses to understand the story better, vivid verbs that make the story more interesting, and there's also literal language and figurative language. So an author might use similes and metaphors. Remember, a simile is a type of figurative language that compares two different things using like or as. So it was as hot as a desert outside would be a simile. A metaphor is a type of figurative language that says something is something else. For example, my dog is a teddy bear. Now, she's not actually a teddy bear, but I'm just saying she is that to show that she's cuddly and warm. So, another example that it gives us on our poster here, Selma ate popcorn. Each kernel of the buttery popcorn crunched loudly in Selma's mouth. That's using that sensory language to literally tell us what's happening. It's buttery, it crunched loudly. And then the last one on our chart right here is hyperbole, and that's an exaggeration. That makes things sound bigger or better or more than what they truly are. That's the best idea I've ever had in my entire life. Now, it might not be, but it means it's a great idea. It's very exciting. So now I want us to look at our Quitoto the Mighty text, and I want you to go to page 78 in your own, or I do have it pulled up on here for you to see. And so I want us to read this page 78, and I want us to see if we can find some figurative language. So it says, high in the sky, a hawk circled and searched. Then, swift as an arrow, he dropped to the ground. Barely ahead of the hawk's claws, Quitoto darted into a bush. The little mouse, who had never learned to dig burrows, hid there with nothing to eat all day. The next morning, before the sun was up or the hawk awoke, Quitoto scurried hungrily across the savannah. He found a fallen baobab fruit, but another creature had seen it first, and the delicious seeds were gone. Now, I think I found some figurative language, and I'm going to highlight it on here. Highlight the sentence. What kind of figurative language did I highlight? Then, swift as an arrow, he dropped to the ground. If you remember what I just said a minute ago about similes, using like or as, swift as an arrow. So how does that help us to understand this story better? As swift as an arrow. I think that the author is trying to tell us just how quickly the hawk was moving without saying the hawk was really fast. It was as swift as an arrow. So that is going to be part of your work in your work page today. And then I want us to go to page 83. In the morning, the sun sent Quitoto across the heavens on a beam from a fresh log fire. Quitoto peered at the savannah, small as a nut, far, far below, and felt very grand indeed. He found the wind hard at work, tugging the clouds together. "I am Katoto, the great king of the savannah," he declared. "I wish to make friends with the most powerful being. I thought it was the river, who told me it was the sun, but no, the sun tells me it is you." "Not so," replied the wind. "This one is far more powerful than I. One cannot tug with my strong braids. However, hard I try. The mountain is the most powerful being." So now in that first paragraph, I think I found some figurative language that was kind of similar to what we just found on page 78. Did you see it? Did you hear it? Katoto peered across at the savannah, small as a nut, far, far below, and felt very grand indeed. So the author is using figurative language. Small as a nut. That's another simile like we've been talking about. Why do you think the author chose to use that simile? What does it tell us in this story? It's telling us that Katoto's view of the savannah, normally it would be very wide and expansive, but from where he is, way up high, it's as small as a nut. It's so small. It's teeny tiny. So, think about these things as you're working through the author's craft page in your work today.